The moment I saw her, I knew I had a choice to make. A woman stood by the side of the road, her hands shaking as she stared down at her car's flat tire. The traffic zoomed past, people barely sparing her a glance. It was clear she was out of her depth, struggling to even figure out what to do next. I was already running late for my interview. The interview, the one chance I had at changing my life. I should have kept going, but I couldn't. Something inside me wouldn't let me. So, with a sharp turn of my bike's handle, I skidded to a stop beside her. "Do you need help?" I asked, my breath coming fast. Her head snapped up, her sharp green eyes locking onto mine. For a split second, hesitation flashed across her face, like she wasn't used to accepting help. But then she sighed. "Yeah, I think so." I nodded and knelt down beside the car, my fingers already working at the bolts. "You got a spare?" She exhaled in relief. "Yeah, in the trunk." I got to work immediately, my hands moving fast. Years of fixing my old bike had made me quick, and within minutes, I had the car lifted, the busted tire off. Sweat dripped down my temple, but I kept going, ignoring the fact that time was slipping away. She paced beside me, checking her watch every few seconds. "I'm going to be late," she muttered under her breath. I let out a small chuckle. "Yeah, me too." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and something shifted in her expression. "Wait, are you on your way somewhere important?" I tightened the last bolt and stood up, wiping my hands on my pants. "Job interview." Her face fell. Oh no." I glanced at my watch. 10 minutes late. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I had blown it. I forced a smile. "It's fine." Her brows knitted together, like she was trying to figure me out. "No, it's not." She pulled something from her bag, pressing it into my hand. A business card. "Call me," she said firmly. I barely glanced at it before tucking it into my pocket. "I don't need. Just call me," she repeated. Then, without another word, she slid into her car and sped off. I stood there for a moment, watching her go. Then, with a sigh, I picked up my bike and pedaled away, knowing I had just lost my one shot at something better. Or so I thought. The next morning, I woke up to the email. "Thank you for your application. Unfortunately, we have decided to move forward with other candidates." I stared at the rejection on my phone, the weight of it pressing into my chest. Another door closed. I ran a hand through my hair and sighed. I needed to find another opportunity. Fast. That's when I noticed something on my nightstand. The business card. I picked it up, flipping it between my fingers. Eleanor Carter, CEO, Carter Enterprises. My heart stuttered. Carter Enterprises? The Carter Enterprises? The company I had just been rejected from? My breath hitched as I stared at the name. Why had she given me her card? Curiosity gnawed at me until, before I could second-guess myself, I dialed the number. She answered on the second ring. "You called," she said, sounding almost relieved. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, you gave me your card. Did you get the job?" I let out a humorless chuckle. "No. Missed the interview." Silence. Then, "Come to my office. Right now." I blinked. "Wait, what?" It wasn't a request. And then she hung up. I stared at my phone, completely thrown. What the hell was going on? Walking into Carter Enterprises felt surreal. The building was massive, pristine glass reflecting the morning sun. The lobby alone was more luxurious than anything I'd ever seen. I felt painfully out of place in my worn-out jacket, my scuffed shoes squeaking against the polished marble floors. "Mr. Carter is expecting you," the receptionist said, barely sparing me a glance as she gestured toward the elevator. "Mr. Carter?" Confused, I stepped inside and pressed the button for the top floor. As the doors opened, I was greeted by a sleek, modern office. And standing by the window, arms crossed, was her. Eleanor Carter. She turned as I stepped in, her piercing gaze settling on me. "You came." I let out a breath. "Yeah, still not sure why." She gestured to the seat across from her desk. "Sit." I did. She studied me for a moment before speaking. "You saved me yesterday. You didn't have to, but you did." I shifted in my seat. "It was just a flat tire." Her expression hardened. "No, it wasn't. It was my career on the line. If I had missed that meeting," she shook her head. "You don't understand what you did for me." I frowned. "What are you saying?" She leaned forward. "I'm saying, I owe you." My stomach flipped. "Oh me." She smirked. "I have an opening in my company. You're going to take it." I blinked. "Wait, you're offering me a job?" Yes. But I didn't even interview. You did. Yesterday. When you chose to help me instead of yourself. I stared at her, trying to wrap my head around what was happening. This was insane. Completely insane. But when she slid the contract across the desk, I knew one thing for sure. My life was about to change forever. I stared at the contract in front of me, my mind spinning. This wasn't just any job. This was a golden ticket. A chance to work at Carter Enterprises, the same company that had rejected me just hours ago. And now, the CEO herself was offering me a position. It didn't make sense. I lifted my gaze to Eleanor. She sat across from me, arms folded, her sharp green eyes unreadable. Why? I asked, my voice hoarse. Why would you do this? She tilted her head. I already told you. You saved me. I let out a dry laugh. It was just a flat tire. No, she said firmly, her eyes locking onto mine. It wasn't. The way she said it made something in my chest tighten. I looked down at the contract again, my hands trembling slightly. The salary alone was more money than I had ever seen in my life. But it wasn't just about that. This was a real opportunity. A second chance. A part of me wanted to say yes immediately, but another part of me hesitated. I clenched my fists. I don't want pity. Her eyes flashed with something unreadable. This isn't pity. Silence stretched between us. Then she leaned back, crossing her legs. You have two choices, she said coolly. You can walk out of here, go back to whatever job search you were doing before. Or you can take a chance. My pulse thundered in my ears. This felt too good to be true. And yet, something told me this woman wasn't the type to waste her time. Slowly, I reached for the pen. And then, I signed my name. The next morning, I stepped into Carter Enterprises as an employee. It still didn't feel real. The office was a world I didn't belong in. The people in tailored suits, the polished floors, the sound of expensive heels clicking against marble. It was all so foreign. I fell out of place. Mr. Walker? A crisp voice cut through my thoughts. I turned to find a woman in a sleek black suit holding a folder. I'm Ava, Ms. Carter's executive assistant. Follow me. I swallowed hard and nodded. She led me through a maze of glass-walled offices before stopping in front of a door. Your workspace, she said, motioning inside. I stepped in, my breath catching. It wasn't a cubicle. It wasn't a cramped desk in a crowded room. It was a private office. I turned to Ava. There's been a mistake. I don't think. No mistake, she said curtly. Ms. Carter made the arrangements herself. My stomach twisted. Why was she doing this? Before I could question it further, Ava handed me a folder. Your responsibilities. Read through them. You start immediately. Then she walked out, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding. I had no idea what I just got myself into. But one thing was clear. This wasn't going to be just a job. From the moment I stepped into that office, I knew I wasn't welcome. Whispers followed me down the hall. Stares lingered longer than they should have. I could feel it. Resentment. Suspicion. Curiosity. Who is he? Why does he have an office? He doesn't even have experience. I clenched my jaw and kept walking, pretending I didn't hear. But the truth was, they were right. I didn't belong here. And the wolves in this office, they could smell weakness. I had to prove myself. Fast. The first real challenge came a few days later. Eleanor called me to her office, her expression unreadable as she slid a thick file across the desk. I need you to prepare a presentation for the executive board, she said. They'll be expecting a financial analysis by Friday. I felt the blood drain from my face. I barely had any corporate experience, let alone experience presenting to executives. I don't know if I can. You can. Her voice was firm. And you will. I swallowed hard. This wasn't a favor. This was a test. I spent the next 3 days buried in financial reports, trying to make sense of numbers that felt like a foreign language. I barely slept. By the time Friday came, I was running on coffee and nerves. I stepped into the boardroom, facing a table full of powerful executives, men and women who had built this company from the ground up. The moment I started speaking, I could feel their skepticism, but I pushed through. I fought through the nerves, through the stares, through the doubt. And when I finished, silence. Then, one of the older executives leaned back, nodding slowly. Well done, he said. I exhaled. I had passed the test. For now. That evening, Eleanor called me into her office. I expected criticism, a breakdown of everything I had done wrong. Instead, she just studied me for a long moment before speaking. Why didn't you just take the money? I blinked. What? When I gave you my card that day, she said. I could tell you didn't want a handout. Most people would have taken the money and walked away. I clenched my fists. I don't want charity. Her lips curled into something almost like a smile. Good. A pause. Then she leaned forward. Do you know why I hired you? I shook my head. Because you remind me of myself. My heart stopped. She stood, walking to the window. I built this company from nothing. I know what it's like to have the odds stacked against you. She turned back, her green eyes locking onto mine. You want to prove yourself? She said. Then do it. A challenge. A test. And I knew then. This was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, my life became a battlefield. Carter Enterprises was a shark tank, and I was a rookie thrown into the deep end. Every move I made was watched, analyzed, and, most times, criticized. Eleanor gave me no special treatment. If anything, she was harder on me than anyone else. Your numbers are weak, she said one day, tossing my latest report onto the table. I gritted my teeth. I'll fix it. You'll fix it by tomorrow. Tomorrow? That was impossible. But Eleanor never accepted excuses. So I stayed up all night, poring over figures, making sure every detail was perfect. By the time I submitted the final report, I could barely keep my eyes open. She glanced at the paper, nodded once, then handed it back. Better. That was it. No praise. No smile. Just better. And yet, that single word meant everything. I knew not everyone liked me, but I hadn't expected them to actively try to destroy me. One afternoon, I walked into a meeting, only to realize that half the data in my presentation had been altered. My stomach plummeted. Someone had set me up. The executives glared, their faces tight with frustration. I scrambled, trying to explain the errors, but the damage was done. Eleanor remained silent through it all, her expression impossible to read. Afterward, she pulled me in her office. You let your guard down, she said, her voice sharp. I clenched my fists. I didn't think. No, she interrupted. You didn't. I looked away, ashamed. Fix it, she said simply. No sympathy. No second chances. Just fix it. I spent the next week rebuilding my reputation. I worked harder than ever, staying late, double-checking every report. I tracked down who sabotaged me, uncovered their trail, and exposed them in front of the board. When the guilty party was fired, the whispers stopped. No one underestimated me after that. Even Eleanor seemed impressed. She didn't say it outright, but I saw the flicker of approval in her eyes. That was enough. One evening, Eleanor did something unexpected. She invited me to a charity gala. This isn't just a party, she said. It's business. I swallowed hard. I don't exactly own a tux. She smirked. You do now. The next day, a tailored suit arrived at my office. I stared at it for a long moment. This was a different world. A world I had never belonged to. But I was about to step into it. And I wasn't going to fail. The gala was unreal. Luxury, power, wealth. It was all on display. Eleanor moved through the crowd like she owned the room. And in a way, she did. People approached her, eager for her attention. But she didn't brush me aside. Instead, she introduced me, as if I mattered. For the first time, I wasn't just some outsider. I was someone. But the night took a turn when a man approached Eleanor, his expression dark. You made a mistake, Carter, he sneered. I tensed. Eleanor's jaw tightened. I don't make mistakes. We'll see about that. The man stormed off, leaving a tense silence behind. I glanced at Eleanor. Who was that? She exhaled slowly. An old enemy. Something told me this wasn't over. 2 days later, the threat arrived. A legal notice. A lawsuit against Carter Enterprises. Eleanor barely reacted. They're trying to scare me. I frowned. Is it working? She shot me a sharp look. No. But something in her eyes said otherwise. I wasn't just watching a company war. I was watching her past come back to haunt her. And for the first time, I realized, even giants have weaknesses. Eleanor fought back. Hard. She was ruthless in meetings, shutting down accusations, countering legal threats with her own. But behind closed doors, I saw it, the exhaustion. One night, I found her in her office, head in her hands. I hesitated, then stepped forward. Do you need help? I asked softly. She looked up, startled. For a moment, she seemed ready to push me away. Then, she didn't. For the first time, Eleanor Carter let someone else carry the weight. The lawsuit reached its peak. Tensions ran high. Investors wavered. The media pounced. And then, Eleanor dropped a bombshell. She revealed evidence of fraud, evidence that exposed the very people trying to destroy her. The case crumbled. Carter Enterprises survived. And Eleanor? She stood taller than ever. But in her eyes, I saw it. She had scars from this fight. And for some reason, I wanted to be the one to protect her next time. After the battle was over, Eleanor called me into her office. "You did well," she said. I blinked. I didn't do much. She smirked. "You did more than you think." A pause. Then she leaned forward. "What do you want, Walker?" The question hit me harder than I expected. For years, I had wanted survival. But now, I wanted more. I just didn't know what that meant yet. The next few months changed everything. I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was Eleanor's right hand. I stood beside her in meetings, traveled with her on business trips. People noticed, and they whispered. But Eleanor, she never addressed it. Until one night, after a long flight, she turned to me. "You're not the same man who walked into this company," she said. I met her gaze. "Neither are you." Something passed between us. Something undeniable. But neither of us said it out loud. Not yet. One evening, I found myself standing outside a familiar building. The job interview I had missed months ago. I thought about the young man I had been. The one who had been desperate, lost, afraid. And then I thought about who I was now. Stronger, wiser, respected. Because of Eleanor. Because of that one choice on the side of the road. I never did get that job. I got something better. I got new life. And as I turned away, stepping into the city lights, I knew this was just the beginning.